So I want to talk about power living. I want to ask this question: what happened at Pentecost? It's very easy for us to read back and just assume all was just fantastic at the time. But you must remember that there was the crucifixion, was an amazing sense of power. The temple veil was split in two. Darkness came on the earth. Bodies were rising out of the grave. And yet the disciples were hopeless. Soon after that, at the resurrection, the power of God came. Jesus was risen. And yet they were home dejected. There comes the ascension. They're looking up to heaven. And the day before Pentecost, they're in a huddle. What happened? And suddenly that you could not hem them in. You couldn't hem them in on the day of Pentecost. They just go. They just go. They hit the streets. What happened? You see, God gave us the greatest gift, of course, in Jesus, but the greatest gift God has given the world is this empowered network of friends. Now, you may call it the church, or you may call it the body, but it was the empowered network of friends. And the interesting thing is that in the life of Jesus, he often calls people to follow me. But after Pentecost, we don't hear that word again. What we hear is be filled with the Spirit. Come, be filled with the Spirit. Because without the Spirit of God, we can't do anything. This is radical and real living with the Spirit of God. And you will remember I spoke about it here before. Faith would have died out were it not for the Spirit of God. And Jesus calls us for two great tasks. One, he says, today, be filled with the Spirit, be me to the world. Because the whole nature of Pentecost is that it was for the world. About 40 years ago or so, when Nikki and a few of us came to London, was starting to see God's Spirit moving in our midst. We were longing for that. We used to sing a song, all over the world. The Spirit is moving all over the world, just as the prophet said it would be. Anybody heard that song before? Yeah. When we used to long for that day when all over the world, there were bit signs here and there. It was great. But nothing like what's happening now. All over the world, the Spirit is moving. There was a heat wave of the Spirit of God on Pentecost. And that heat wave has become a heat map in our time. Have a look at this picture. It's a bit busy, I know. But what it's showing is that the growth of that part of Christendom that believes in the power of the living Spirit of God has gone up fourfold since we were first starting on this journey of being filled with the Spirit and seeing the growth of the Spirit of God. And Alpha has played an important part in that, and it's expected to double in the next 10 years. We're not alone. But the global will always start with the local. It will start with you and me today, tonight, this afternoon, whichever you want to call it. It starts when we respond to the Spirit of God. And the key to it is this: you and I, this empowered body of friends, we exist only for the world. We do not exist as a club to keep ourselves cheerful and thoughtful. So it's important to remember that it wasn't always like this. That group of disciples were disillusioned, they were depressed, they were in distress. The person that they were following is no longer there. Fiona and I went to see a play called The Testament of Mary. It's a brilliant story of Mary as a mother viewing the death of Jesus. It's a one-person show of both Fiona Shaw. And I was deeply struck by one thing, which is when she looks back on the death of Jesus, it is this recurring sense of never again. Never again will I hear his voice. never again will I see him turn water into wine. Never again will I walk with his disciples. And the disciples had the same. This death was desperate. Never again will we chat and talk about the fish and tease each other about how much fish we've caught. There's something brutal about death. And never again. It's a harsh phrase. And you may feel that. You may feel that a relationship has died. And never again will you walk along the beach with someone talking about nothing much. You may sense that a job is dead. Contract didn't turn up. No more will you meet around the cooler and chat and plan. Or maybe in your heart you've said to yourself, never again will I trust my father or my friend, and something harsh and hard has grabbed hold of you. And that's what they were feeling at the time, grieving a loss. But it wasn't very much help to them, because just after the resurrection, all that happened was Jesus seemed to turn up now and again. He did come through doors, and he had an odd body and was eating fish on the beach. But hey, that wasn't enough to sustain your life, just having these odd appearances. Very inconsistent, different people. It didn't help to know. I don't know whether sometimes you think certainly for me, my Christian life, you sort of said, well, gosh, he's a kind of now and again God. Turns up, now and again. Sort of feel good about God tonight, but who knows, tomorrow morning is Monday. Do you know that feeling? But something happened on the day of Pentecost. Because now it was not now and again, it was time and again, and again and again. The Spirit of God empowered this group of people, and he showed them, I am with you, right there, visibly, empowering them to see the lame walking, the people who were in bondages, the chains falling off, people being healed, people speaking in other languages. Fire came down. Well, the wind was blowing. They thought they were drunk. The Spirit of God acts visibly. They thought they were completely drunk. And as the prophets of Ezekiel was with the people, they would remember that Ezekiel, because the Pentecost was the celebration of the giving of the law to Moses in the tablets of stone. But now, not on stone, but in the tenderness of the hearts. Here is Ezekiel 36 and verse 36. And I'll give you a new heart. I will put a new spirit in you. I will take out your stony, stubborn heart, and I'll give you a tender, responsive heart. Isn't that what we long for? Just a tender, responsive heart. Or if you prefer the phrase from the Message translation, and I will replace it with a heart that is God-willed, not self-willed. I'll put my spirit in you and make it possible for you to do what I tell you and to live my commandments. This Pentecost changed the course of history. And if you don't believe me, I just want you to look at a picture in Acts chapter 1. In Acts chapter 1 is a description of the church before Pentecost. And it's a kind of caricature of a church. They meet in a special place. There are about 120 of them. They read the scriptures. They pray. They elect someone to lead them, which is Peter stands up and leads them. There's an administrative task to be done. And Judas has topped himself and said, now they've got a gap, there's a vacancy, the PCC has to meet. It has to kind of work out how to elect the new person. There's a procedure for the election. They have to determine what kind of ballot it's going to be. Is it going to be a single transferable vote? Is it first past the post? They decide, well, they're going to cast lots, and they're going to determine by the casting of the lots what is going to be very, very sort of task-oriented, very process-oriented, very programmatic, very administrative. There's no power there. And the next day, the Spirit of God just falls on the same people. And Peter, rather than being a suit running a meeting, Peter is now preaching about this Jesus who is alive. There was something that occurred. They went completely from this receiving mode. They switched to transmit mode. They switched to giving mode. They started making their presence felt everywhere. You see, this wasn't a bunch of loners. It was a group of learners. That's what the body of Christ is. We learners. We learn from each other. We learn from the Spirit of God. We learn from each other. That's why the body is so important. And people say, well, you know what? First empty yourself. But no. This is not what we're taught. We're taught that we will be filled. We are not Buddhists. We don't empty ourselves to get to a state. We wait for the Spirit of God to come and to fill us with His Spirit. They're not drunk. It's only 5 o'clock. I have two ways of looking at big issues. If I have to make a decision, I try and work out, is it nice to have or impossible without? Nice to have or impossible without? And you know what? We need the Spirit of God. I don't know if I look back on 40 years in the workplace, I've got to go there tomorrow, as you do. I don't know how one copes in the harshness of commercial compromises that we have to reach every day without the power of the Spirit of God that is with us. I don't think you can withstand the headwinds that are coming. And you know what? The thing that makes it most important for me in faith is this. It's not that one needs to have a particular it's what faith really is that there is something, not that when things are going really good keeps reminding me of how good it is, or when it's really bad says, well, don't worry, it's going to be good. No, you want something that is consistent in its essence all the time, that is unchanging, unvarying. And the Holy Spirit is the Spirit for all seasons, when things are gutting and when things are good. He is the one that, that comes and enables us to sustain the difficulties when the winds of change are blowing so fiercely in our time, when technology may just throw us as we don't know how to yet cope and transition into a world like that, when finances will come like a tornado from nowhere, and you just get knocked over by a financial crisis that would hit you, or a gust of wind sort of just knocks you over when you're not sure about what your purpose or your calling is in life. The events that just knock you sideways, you become like a candle that is just blowing in the wind. I love Mumford & Sons' album called Babel, and there is a line in it which is this: you ask, where will we stand in the winds that will howl as all we see will slip? Our breath is weak. It's a question I want to ask you. See, on the day of Pentecost, there was a gushing, mighty, rushing wind. And the question is, Where will you stand in the wind that is rushing at you? Is the wind that is coming at you merely to be resisted because of the stamina that you have, or just because of the self-will that you've got, or your own strength? Or is it the Spirit of God that is blowing new life and direction into your life? You know, when the Spirit of God is blowing and blowing you in the direction of your destiny, is there another wind that is just coming to try and knock you into just drifting, becalming you? A little puff of a wind rather than the strong wind of the Spirit that takes us from direction in our lives to the destiny of our lives? Or is it that wind of the Spirit that has it with us, that enables us to stand because we know we are filled with the wind of the Spirit in our sails and we can stand? Or is it that another wind will just come and just cause us to stumble? Or do you feel that your life, could it be that the wind of the Spirit is wanting to allow you to flourish in the goodness of all the things that God has given you? And another wind is coming that just makes you flounder, blows you off course. Where does the power come from for everyday living? So I want to give you 3 keys to this. First, remember and know the source. I was at a book launch during the week for a book by Arianna Huffington, the owner of the Huffington Post. And she wrote a book called Thrive, which is to sort of help people facing burnout. And one of the things that she makes is a comment which goes as follows: we all have within us a centered place of wisdom, harmony, and strength. And it worries me a bit that we sometimes think that we've got it within us, that there's some centered place within us that kind of balances our life out. Actually, we have someone who is the Spirit of God who is never changing. I may have a center today, but the center of harmony can be easily thrown off course by a bad telephone conversation or by my feeling bad about myself. But the Spirit of God is the one who's always plumb center. You must be careful of the source. Do you know that it's possible for a star to actually shine and to die, crumple up, but the light, because it's traveling at the speed of light, still continues, and the source is dead, but the light can be seen on earth for years to come? I want to ask you this question: is your source of your life merely yourself or something that you've read, or is that light source good, or could it just switch off in a moment? As when that light had traveled and the star's light has finished, it disappears. All we can do is to check the source and to encounter the presence of the source of all life, which is the Spirit of the living God, reminding us of Jesus Christ. The second is that there is a sustaining power. And this sustaining power is extraordinary because it's also a saving power. When in that great moment, Peter talks to the group of people, and he says to them, change your lives and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the forgiveness of your sins. It is a saving power. Our sins are forgiven in the name of Jesus. It's also a very satisfying power. You can't have a sustaining power that isn't satisfying. If you're never satisfied, you're just going to look for something else. And Peter was wonderful. On the day of Pentecost, he quotes Psalm 18 from King David. And he says to King David, just as a reminder of Acts chapter 2, verse 25, I will not be shaken. I am unshakable. That's what sustaining power does. It makes you unshakable. And also, in verse 28, he says, we are sustained day by day because you've made known to me the paths of life. Do you want to know the path of your life? Do you want to know the direction of your life? The same way as King David wanted to know the direction of his life. He makes known to you the paths of your life. That's what is really sustaining. And what's also sustaining is that it's joyful. Verse 28, you will fill me with joy in your presence. It's the joy of the Lord that makes us real. This is not some sort of feel-good Sunday night feeling that's gooey and gone tomorrow. No, it's a sustaining power. When he promises, he says, this promise is for you. It's for your children. It is for those who are far off, other countries that hadn't yet heard. And for all those whom the Lord our God will call, that's you and me, sustained through the generations and sustained through the ages. And that's what sustains us. That's why it is that never again will you have to say, never again. Nor will it only be now and again that the Spirit of God turns up, because the sustaining power is with us again and again. And lastly, this is sharing power. Do you know, probably when we're talking about power, we don't want to be power maniacs. We're not seeking power, because the power, of course, is the power of the presence of Jesus. And the test of it is this: power is shared with others. That's what happened. They shared the power. As the power of God and the Spirit of God came upon them, so they went out from that room to the streets, to the cities of Rome and Ephesus, to the known world as it was at that time. The switch was flicked. Go. The biggest behavioral change that occurred was when the Spirit of God came and reminded them that this is sharing power. This is the power to heal, the power that breaks the bondages of those that are captured by addictions and by enslavement to other gods and other spirits. And there are other gods and there are other spirits. And so they just had to share it. And when the leaders called them together and said to them, hey, look, you're causing trouble. Will you stop it? They turned to him and said, shut up. We are witnesses of something, and how can we not talk about what we have seen and what we have heard? You could not shut them up. They needed and wanted to share this extraordinary power. So what happened at Pentecost? What happened at Pentecost was that we became empowered to empower. There was a power encounter with the Spirit of the living God. And power living is living the presence of Jesus every day. Every day. It changed everything for those disciples. And it empowered them for service. It empowered them for giving. It empowered them for living. It's an amazing thing that this God who we serve is the God who calls you and me to be the very best person that you or I could be. The very best person. That's what I long for myself. to be the very best of the gifts that God has given me. And here is the Spirit of God. Isn't it amazing? On the day of Pentecost, this energy, this vitality, this healing power that came to the world. This could be, I dream that this could be our time. This could be the time of the Spirit. This could be, why not, that you and I could be those dots on the heat map that we saw, increasing the places, increasing the presence of the power of the Spirit of God, not hemmed in a holy huddle, but hell-breaking heat maps, empowered by the Spirit of God, that will change our cities, change our churches, change our communities, change our countries, change our continents. It is time. It is time. Rise up. People of God, we have amazing message, and the power of God is with us. Let us stand. Let us worship. Let us worship this God. The Spirit of God is upon us.